Jane says,
Hey, Miguel Arati.
radio.
Look at this guy. Miguel Arati here, and that's Chadillac. And yeah, he's singing a little Jane's Addiction just to show you how old we are. And that's what this is. This is the Future Was Yesterday podcast. And basically, we feel a couple older guys, not, over the hill or anything like that, but there's some things going on in technology and around the world and stuff where, yeah, I feel like, hey, I got left behind. Like, it already happened. And drones is one of those subjects that we talk about a lot offline. So we decided to kick off the Future Was Yesterday podcast with drones. And this is something, I got to admit, mainstream, it hit the news recently over the last few months about, droves of drones being seen in the Midwest and, who's driving these things and that sort of stuff. And, it starts to pique your interest, and you realize that, yeah, I got left behind on this because this has been going on for like a couple of years, getting to where we are now, at least, a decade, I would venture to say. And yeah, and where we are now is the stuff's becoming mainstream. So anyway, Chad here lives in rural Indiana, and I'm in Costa Rica, and Chad's got some personal experience with drones. And he's going to show off some equipment there and stuff. And this is, something he's experiencing where he's had, privacy issues and, drones potentially assisting thieves, on his property and things like that. So once it's gone mainstream, it's also become, kind of thing like when you got the internet and then you also had Silk Road, that kind of thing where it was like, there's always the good, and then there's the, not so good. And the drone stuff is starting to rear its ugly head with a lot of ugly stuff. And, the potential for bad with drones to me is just mind-boggling. You know what I mean? I'll let you take over for a bit.
Okay, look, the first thing we need to talk about is CCTV. And for a lot of people don't know what that is, but CCTV is what most of Europe uses now to monitor citizens. So anywhere you go, and I'll get back to that about America, but anywhere you go in Europe, you're seen. And I mean, you're on camera all the time. Anywhere you go in China, other than, very deep rural areas, which has probably changed by now, you're on camera all the time. So the average American, and this is at least 10 years old. The average American 10 years ago was on camera by the time they left their house and got to wherever they were going 14 times on average. 14 times on average. And that's a decade ago. Now they don't need that at all. So if you think about it, you can look at my house right now. You can go on Google Maps. I can look where you're setting. You can look where I'm setting, right on Google Maps, boom, and look right at it. Now it's going to be old unless you have Google Live, right? So everybody's like, oh, well, what's it matter then? Well, the difference between Google Maps is that they use satellite systems to look down and go click and take a picture. But, they're not going to see me getting a Hummer or whatever it is, whatever. They're not looking in my windows. October 20th. So let me go back a little bit more. I'm in the hemp project with Purdue University in Indiana. So I live in Indiana. I live in north central rural Indiana. So I'm surrounded by cornfields and trees. That's it. There's nothing else out here. I could shoot a gun at my neighbor's house and couldn't hit their front window with a high-powered rifle. That's how far away they are. And that's my closest neighbor. So we're in the middle of nowhere, and there is nothing out here to prevent anyone from coming into my home and doing terrible things to me, except my little friend right here. And that's why people in rural America are always pro-gun. Even a far left radical, as far as anyone around here is concerned, I'm a radical far left liberal that would not give up my gun for any reason at all. And I have several, and I don't have any intentions of giving any of them up, no matter what happens. And the reason is because by the time the police were able to get here, everything would already be done. So we need it for self-protection. whether that's coyotes killing my chickens, a cougar that lived just right behind the wall behind me. A cougar lived 200 yards out into the woods that way through the field for 2.5 years. She was female. She was a female cougar, and you just don't know. I mean, I know that sounds crazy. I would never kill a cougar. In fact, just a little self-confession here. I hate killing anything at all. We don't even kill mice. We capture rabbits that eat our trees out here, and we capture possums only in the wintertime. In the summertime, we let them go because they eat so many ticks. They prevent Lyme disease. But we live trap them, and then we take them down and we set them loose in a nice place. So I'm an animal lover, and I believe in animal rights, but I do eat meat. You got to have protein, and animal protein is the best protein. So I'm not getting into that. But so here's where all this goes back to where we started.
CCTV.
Well, not just CCTV. With CCTV, they are watching everything you do. But now in the United States, people are like, oh, what's the difference? They've got satellites up everywhere that see everything, right? So that's where the initial acceptance of this came into play in the US. Because initially, if you go back into 1995, people were terrified of the camera on putting a camera on a computer because they didn't know what it would do. And now just recently, the United States government released a huge front page article in the New York Times stating that, or I don't know if it's New York Times, but mass media stating that if you buy a smart TV, you cannot be safe any longer from spies because they have cameras on them that go both ways. So the camera on your laptop goes both ways. The camera on your smartphone goes both ways. You can turn your smartphone off and it's still going to be delivering messages. If you go 3/4 of a mile to the west of me, there's a 3-pronged tower, and then there's one there and one there. To each side of it, maybe 1/2 mile to 3/4 of a mile, that are short towers that have one blinking red light. And then there. So in other words, in all 4 directions, and then in the middle of those directions, so southeast, northeast, etc., there are also smaller towers that have red blinking lights that they just put in this year. And they did it, get this, they did 90% of that work at night. We didn't even see it being done. And they did it while the corn was high, so you can't really see anything. So you would go past an area out in the roads where there would be corn knocked down, where somebody had driven through the field to knock the corn down. And at first we didn't even know what it was. And then all of a sudden there's this blinking light out there, a red blinking light, but just one. And it's much shorter than the big towers, which are radio towers. And on top of that, they have the cellular antennae that receive and send out messages. And everybody's seen those. They're giant white things. And so what does that have to do with CCTV, right? Okay, so CCTV in Europe was a way for law enforcement to watch people. And if something happened in a riot or whatever, they could say, gotcha, you burned down a car, or beat somebody up, or lit a pub on fire. And we're not going to have that just because your soccer team didn't win. And those people would go up against charges. And for a long time, they fought it. Now, here in the United States, this is before my mother died. So this is probably 2008. I got a letter in the mail. Actually, my mother did, because the vehicle that I had driven at that time, I'd switched the plates around when we'd gotten them somehow, and they had her plates on it. I don't know. But whatever it was, it were her plates. And we were driving back and forth doing MMA shows in Chicago. And when you go around the bypass on Chicago, you take the toll. And coming home, we were exhausted, and everybody's done. And we've probably been all the way from Minnesota to all the way down into Wisconsin and then Chicago. And we'd make that big trip, and I'd drop fighters off and then come back and pick them up the next day. So everybody's burnt out. It's Sunday night. Everybody wants to be home. And I would drive through these toll roads, and I never got anything in the mail from it. So I just kept taking the free toll road instead of having to stop and deal with it. And then I got a $2,800 bill in the mail a couple of years later. And there was no place to call. You couldn't call and fight it. My attorney, who's very good, you need one, let me know if you're in Indiana. He could not, he had his para spend hours online because we're friends, and declared that there's absolutely no way to fight this. There's no judge, there's nothing. They say, we're going to take your license if you don't pay it. And that's it. And they did that with a camera, like a CCTV camera. It was the exact same thing. Okay, so that's the beginning. Now that's, at this point, God, it's more than 10 years ago. You know, it's 12 years ago, 14 years ago, probably, really to start. From there, they gradually integrated different types of cameras in. Now, when we initially started seeing drones were these little, kind of looks like a little model with 4 little helicopters on it. And you could buy one that had a camera on it, and you had a little remote control. And I don't have one here, but you have a little remote control with 2 joysticks, and you could fly it around. When we did our first Soda Fests, the second year, the guy that did our photography for us came in and used a drone to cover everything. We were like, wow, that's really cool. And then it zoomed in on my wife and my son and I sitting on a lawn chair, and we had no idea we were being filmed. And so when the next year's images come out to promote that Soda Fest, we wound up doing Soda Fest 8 or 9 now, I think. I don't remember now. But whatever it is, it showed our picture sitting in that lawn chair, and I was shocked, and it bothered me. And I was like, hey, where'd this picture come from? Oh, that's from the drone. That was taken 1,000 feet in the air. And it was like it was right there. I mean, it was like somebody stood in front of us and took video. It was so close. You could see my mouth moving. You could see my arm around my wife and my son here, everything. And that's from 1,000 feet in the air with a little tiny thing about this big around. And that's been, we're pushing 10 years on that, right? So yeah. How far have we come now? Well,
I can answer that a little bit. Let me jump in and give you a break for
it.
So, I mean, I live in Costa Rica, so I'm in Central America, and it's not a frontline first world country, but we have our nice little stores and Walmarts here and that sort of stuff. Well, I could go to Walmart and buy a drone here. I could go there. There's discount stores like I lived in Central Pennsylvania. There's a brand called Ollie's and stuff like that. Discount stores you go to. There's one called Del Rey in Costa Rica, and I can get a drone there for about $30.
Yep.
And these are simple drones. So, let's take this, a step further. But because I'm in, Central America and drones are available in stores, I'll jump in and say we're all susceptible to this type of thing now. Because if I can see them here, then the next step when I looked is definitely an escalation, because the next thing, what do? You go to Amazon or Google, you check it. And now once you hit Amazon, it's page after page of drones, So many of them ranged, from the $30 types, with, some bells and whistles and stuff. There's a high end of about $300. $300 to $400 of spending gets you a pretty damn good home use set of drone and camera and stuff like that. And then, now when you look at it, what they're doing is they've made it into components. So in these 10 years, the diversification has become that. So You know, now there's some with cameras built in. There's some that, you know, have an arm where you can put the camera and it holds the camera so you can switch cameras in and out and stuff like that. So all that component stuff is all sitting there. It's like, you know, you can improve your camera. So that feeling of like, you know, invasive from up there, it's like every time there's new technology, they can put it on the drones. There is also on Google and on Amazon rather a few drones that hit about $1,000. And so this is what a home, you know, a home person, somebody just, you know, says, hey, I think I'd like to take pictures in drones. You know, that I'm a photo enthusiast, you know, whatever, leads you to buy your first drone. These might be the first steps. You go to the store, they're there. You go on Amazon, maybe get a discount and stuff. You spend about $300, you're getting a good thing. You spend $1,000, you're getting one of the newer top of the line models for home use.
Well, and now here's the big difference. Okay, so I'm in the hemp program with Purdue University. Everything's legal. It as legal as Indiana's going to be for the next couple of years anyway, because we're ridiculously behind everything here. And so our education system is terrible. Our just the entire Indiana government and state house is run by, it's a completely red state, and it's a redneck state on top of that. So, you know, whatever you want to do with that, tune out if you don't like it. That's okay. I don't care. What I will say is this: what they have allowed to happen is they have allowed drone legislation to slip through their fingers and to not do anything about it. In fact, drone owners have more rights than do non-drone owners, because if I take this shotgun right here and I shoot this drone out of the air, technically speaking, I can be arrested. And I have a friend who's got a friend who did that on his hemp plot. Now, I farm hemp with the Purdue University Hemp Research Program. So I am as legitimate as you can get. That means state police drive up here and drive into my driveway anytime they want, and they walk out into my field and they check my hemp to make sure it hasn't gone over 0.03% THC, which they raised to 0.05, but that's another story. So I had just harvested all of my hemp and hung it up in my pole barn and got ready to do it. And by all, I'm talking about 300 plants. I didn't have a huge CBD growth this year. It was a really bad year in Indiana and in the Midwest with rain and all kinds of crazy stuff and then heat. We grew a great crop. We were happy with it. Purdue was happy with it. And on October, but one of the regulations for being in this program was that you had to have some type of security system. I've been here for 18 years and I've never even considered something like that. Security to me is, if somebody's out there, I'm going to shoot them and then we'll deal with it later. That's security. Now I have these infrared cameras everywhere. And I come home one night and out of just pure curiosity, I hadn't even looked at them. They'd been up a few weeks. And I was like, I wonder what my hemp patch looks like now that I cut it all out and it's all hanging in the barn drying. And so I pulled it up on this phone right here. I pulled it up. I pulled my camera up and I went, what the hell is that? So I called my installer, and keep in mind, this is like midnight. And so thank God I knew him. And I said, hey, Matt, is there something going on in my backyard, or what's going on with my camera? And he goes, it looks like you spit on it. And I go, well, I can assure you I didn't spit on my camera. And he goes, you sure somebody else didn't? And I go, no, why would somebody spit on my camera? And he goes, well, that's your hemp camera. And I said, nobody's going to steal hemp. You can't get high on it. It's not worth that much. Nobody even really knows it's out here. Nobody's going to do that. And he goes, well, I know it's out there. And I was like, okay. And then he goes, whoa, wait a minute, it's a bug. And I go, why is it a bug? And now I'm looking at the same thing he's looking at, except now I'm looking at it on this laptop, because I have it on my laptop as well. And he goes, well, you see it moving? And I'm looking at it and it's like moving around. He goes, that's a bug crawling across your camera. And then all of a sudden there's no bug. And I go, okay, the bug's gone. And then blang, it hits it again. And he goes, dude, that's a flashlight. And I go, what? He goes, that's a flashlight. So I take my assault rifle. I'm in my bathrobe. I put on some slip-ons. I'm in my underwear. You know, it's 12:30 in the morning by this time at least. And I go running out there October 20th like a maniac with an assault rifle, with a bayonet popped open, and, you know, popping shots in the air saying, hey, get the hell out of here. And I'm thinking it's a bunch of kids, right? And they probably drove by and they saw the hymn. And that's all I'm thinking. I have no other thoughts in my head than that. And I'm like, if I was a kid and I saw that, I wouldn't do it because I never, ever stole pot from people. And everybody grew out here in the 70s and 80s. I mean, everybody. Corn and marijuana grow at the same rate. And so you could, when the corn turned brown, you knew it was time to almost harvest. And you could find it easily because it would still be super green and the corn would be brown. Well, the corn had started to turn brown out here. It was very brown. And I thought, man, somebody's just trying to bandit me. And I assumed it was kids. I don't want to shoot some kid. So I'm screaming at them, get the hell out of here. It's hemp, you dumb fuckers. You can't get high on it. It's not worth what you think it is. Just go away or you're going to get shot. Because if you step on this property, I am going to shoot you. Because in Indiana, one thing that we have here that is good, especially out here, is that we have the right to defend ourselves with lethal force if we're threatened in any way. So somebody comes on your property and goes, I'm going to kick your ass. You can shoot them in the head, and that's the end of it. And there's nothing anyone can say about it. You'll go to court, and you'll walk away. And that's pretty much it. And that's maybe a little exaggeration, but it's not far off. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't want to shoot anybody. I'm a pacifist, and I do not want to hurt anyone. But when somebody's on my property and they're threatening my property, me, and especially my family, all of that pacifist shit goes away, and I will kill any motherfucker that comes on this land. And I will kill them until there's nothing left of them. It's the way it has to be out here, because as I stated earlier, I'm the only source of defense. But I've never, ever had a single problem. And then I catch this kid. And by the way, I've got my phone on speaker in my pocket talking to Matt, and he's in Indianapolis, and he's watching all this remotely. He's got a 4-second delay. And he goes, Chad, you have flashlights going off in your field. And I go, what do you mean I have flashlights going off in my field? And he said, in the front of the barn. Now, I'm clear behind the barn, so I can't see any of that. And I go, what? And I go running up there, and I leave the back door of the barn open. So when I do that, they take the opportunity to go through the back barn, which I had relocked and put different locks on just a couple days before, or they would have had the keys because they had stolen the keys, which is why I put different locks on it, because something wasn't right. I was like, we're missing the keys. I'm going to put different doorknobs on here, etc. Okay, so long story short, he goes, yeah, they're shooting flashlights back and forth from the field. You have to understand how big my area is here. Okay, so like Miguel, you live in an area where there's a house beside your house on each side, like they literally like bump into each other. And I don't have any neighbors at all. I have corn and trees. That's it. So they can disappear into that in the night instantly. And there's nothing you can do to prevent it. You can't see them if they're smart, if they have ghillie suits on, or if they're camoed out, or if they're just smart and silent, they're gone. These guys are using flashlights from one over there, and one across the road at what turned out to be my mailbox is where they're flashing from. And they're flashing from 3 different directions. And Matt would say, they're behind you. And I'd turn this way. And he'd go, now they're behind you this way. And I'd turn this way. And he'd say they're at the front. And I'd turn this way. And he'd say, now they're at the back. And I'd run to the back. They had me running around my yard like a fucking madman. And this is the first night. That was that was October 20th, 2019. I'd never been broken into. I'd never felt that kind of violation in my life. We didn't lock our doors really. We didn't do any of that kind of stuff other than the shop because of all the tools and stuff. We just didn't do that. It's just not what we did here. And now everything is locked all the time. Everything's locked down. We have guns placed safely, of course, up in very high places where people can't get to them. But you don't have an unloaded gun here now. That's not part of the deal anymore. We lost all of that. And then a few days later, I was moving dirt for my dad because he's ill and he wanted this dirt moved that the state had dredged out of the ditches. And I said, okay, yeah, I can do it, but I have to do it late when we get back from the hospitals with my son. And I came home late, and right before I left, the guy that was helping Dad said, hey, you see that up there? And I go, yeah. And he goes, that's a drone. And I go, okay, man. And I'm not going to smear the guy's name, but the truth is I was like, maybe he drank a little too much or something like that. Whatever, man. And, I'm a pretty sober guy. I mean, I'll imbibe a little, but I'm not getting wasted. And so I said, no, as a stargazer my entire life, because I'm an insomniac, I used to walk down the roads in the middle of the night, and there's no light pollution here, or there used to not be. I said, no, buddy, that's a planet. And he goes, you see how it's flashing? See how it's twinkling? And I said, that's exactly why I know it's a planet. It's low on the horizon. It's twinkling. And he goes, yeah, but it's blue. And I said, which means it's probably Neptune. Could be Saturn, probably Neptune. Neptune twinkles blue. And I'm driving home and I'm thinking to myself, Neptune's not in our area right now. In October, it shouldn't be shining in the west. If it is here, it's not that low and it's not in the west. He goes, go home and get some binoculars, just the cheapest binoculars you've got. And I had these little cheap binoculars that my grandpa had left me when he died, from the war, actually. I pulled them out and I looked and I noticed that there were lights on this side and this side of this planet that had, by the way, not just stayed over at my dad's 7 miles from here, but come this way and was floating 500 feet over my property line. So it followed me. And I took the binoculars and I looked at it, and that was my first awakening to, holy shit, something else is going on. Now, from there, you can imagine how things go, right, Miguel?
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is frightening, and now you're getting hit with drones out west. And so let me just complete the picture here, because one of the things that's out there right now with, legitimate and decent uses of drones, there is a lot of farming drones. A lot of drones are used to monitor the crops and that sort of stuff, and
in the daylight.
And the cameras are quite sophisticated, so
yes.
They can check crop density and many things like that. Now, those drones are a little more expensive. Those
are $5,000 drones.
Yeah, and from there it goes up in terms of prices and things like that. There are also whole companies involved in the business of this.
Yeah.
So a farmer maybe like yourself, from what I can see now, again, this is superficial searches where I'm trying to fill in for the podcast here because I'm crash coursing because I know nothing about drones, right? But they might get you might get like a $200 a month bill, and you've got a drone that monitors your crop, beginning of the month, middle of the month, end of the month, and there's a service around the drones and stuff like that.
And just to fill in, that's so we know this needs weed control, this needs nitrogen, this needs phosphorus, etc.
Yeah, I mean, it is, and that's, I think, what you're paying for, and that's what I think the price jump is for the sophistication of the technology involved with it.
And let me say something real fast and interject. I'm sorry here. No one is doing that here yet. No one.
Okay.
The only people that are doing that are insurance companies and the bailout from the Trump administration, which farmers got screwed on, by the way. They didn't get the bailout they were supposed to get. But go ahead.
I mean, I believe that another use for the like, you might see drones out there is law enforcement. They may have some drones doing some basic work or whatever it is. They may even
if someone gets lost or a prisoner breaks out. That's the only two. That's the only two things they actually use them for right now.
Okay, and
and not at night. They can't fly at night at all.
Okay. There are other types of uses for it. Geologists, that sort of stuff. So there are drones. So I've seen some drones in some of those services with $100,000 pieces of equipment.
Yeah.
So it does get very sophisticated. Now you take all of that, which is now modern industry and business, moving into the drone. So now it's like you've got the home aspect and you've got those businesses. So what happens is those businesses, if you're a drone maker and like all the farmers in Indiana say, yeah, we'll go with them for the drones next year. You know what I mean? That we're going to all start using. They've got major business. You know what I mean? So
absolutely.
So all these companies have been, from what I can tell, constantly upgrading. So it's like they come out with new models and stuff like that. Now, what that does is there's a whole aspect of it now where, I don't know exactly. I'll call it like customization. Where and this is now here is where we're into exactly where I think we're into an area of danger, because if we're all like-minded and we think drones, hey, pretty cool, we can take pictures of the clowns from above at the kids' parties, and we have some real fun at the Grand Canyon and stuff. If everybody's thinking positive stuff like that, then we're okay. But humans don't do that.
No.
And and at this point, me catching up, we've clearly lost control. It's making the major news and stuff like that. But there's no way to say like guns. You can't say he's got a gun, he doesn't have a gun, or anything like that. We don't know. Drones now, anybody could have a drone.
Right.
So now when I look at it, you're in rural Pennsylvania, but in a place like San Jose here, Costa Rica, I can tell you that if where you're from, even though you're in rural Indiana, where you're from, law enforcement is limited in some way on their use of drones and stuff. Here, they haven't even thought about it yet. They're probably happy with their first helicopter. You know what I mean? So I say I may be wrong on that, but what I'm stating is that we're further behind on that stuff. And that's what makes it a little weird, because it's so advanced and that customization stuff. So now what does that do? There are contests for coordinating with other drones.
Yep.
And that leads to another list of applications, both beautiful and artistic, in many ways, to informative in presentations and things like that, to they may be quite dangerous, and then here's the other part of it, obviously. Now, where most Americans first heard of drones was in Afghanistan and Iraq, the use of the military using the drones and stuff like that. So
we just used one in Iran, right?
Right, and then so they're just using so as most technological advances that when you look at them, the military application is already the one that's furthest along. So they're very advanced. So I think probably the best drones in the world belong to the American and probably the Mossad or the Israeli armies. The Chinese army,
the Chinese are very sophisticated.
They probably got some nice drones to work on. The Russians, I never sleep on the Russians. You know what I mean?
No. Okay.
So now these are big countries, military applications. We talked about farmers and things like that. And them being able to buy services, geologists and things, So there's advancements being made in these drones that trickle down into the personal market, right?
Right.
So now once you're in the personal market, so now what do you get? You get, guys who want to coordinate their drones, and they go out and they do a drone dance. And now people say, oh, now that really looks like UFOs. Now it's definitely not planets when you see drones dancing together.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That even gets more sophisticated. But now there's customization. So the drones you buy for even $300 probably have about an hour's worth of flight time here, right? But
that's where we that's where we make the break.
And now here's customization all over again, because now you can get drones with, you know, I found drones, and I spent about a day looking into this stuff, which you could say, wow, that's a lot, or you could say that's nothing. Both ways is right. It's not that much, but you can find drones with 20 hours worth and several hundred kilometers worth of range.
Yep.
So now once that hits the personal market, now things are very, very, very different, you know? Like,
well, it hasn't hit the personal market, but what has happened is you can go to YouTube and learn to hack anything, right? Life hacks, right? You know, hack your washing machine to make it more efficient and hold more clothes. Hack your refrigerator, hack your television, hack your computer, right? So you can hack your phone. You can hack all of this stuff. Now you can hack drones, and you can put phone batteries actually in them. And I think this is really important, Miguel. I think we need to talk about the Wi-Fi system that drones run on now. So how much have you read up on that?
I'll let you take it away from there.
Oh, okay. So when I saw my first drone, I really kind of wondered, you know, is that a UFO? Am I slipping here? You know, I've got a lot of stress, all these medical issues, and I was in a car crash, and I really kind of started to question my own judgment, to be honest. And that was a very uncomfortable feeling because I've never been like that before. But I knew what I was seeing. And so I started to talk about it like, hey, has anybody else seen this? To the point of kind of a compulsion or an obsession for it. You know, the obsession made me compulsively talk about this because I had been broken into. So they used flashlights. They used a drone to spot me out, which you could, the next day when we went over everything, we saw drones in the field floating around, filming stuff, figuring out where everything was at. Why on earth they didn't just come and get it right then when we weren't home, I don't know. But that's what they did. And I have my own suspicions about that. I think they probably had marijuana planted somewhere out in the fields, and they were probably looking for that and then saw, holy shit, here's a whole barn full of marijuana drying. Let's steal it. So I caught one of the guys that night on October 20th running through the back door of my garage as I came through the front with a handful of hemp like this. And he dropped some. The only one, I've gotten 3 footprints out of this. And all of these months, wet, dry, fields, mud, grass, you name it. Every kind of thing. I mean, I'm talking about a running through my hemp patch, which is covered around, you know, it's got a fence around it. You can see where they smashed it down, and they still didn't leave a footprint. Just crazy things like that. So I really started to question my own judgment and thought, you know, am I losing it? And then it got really weird, because then I started to see images on my camera that just didn't make sense. And I could see them live, Miguel. I could turn my camera on, and if the drones were overhead, now keep in mind, by this time, I had started to do a little bit of research, and once you see 1 or 2, you can pick them out this fast. There are literally 7 over my house right now in a circle. Not directly over, or I'd shoot them down because I don't care anymore. But, you know, there's one this way, 1,500 feet probably diagonally in the air. You know, you're not going to shoot it because you can't reach it. You know, there's one right there. There's one there. There's one there. There's one directly overhead. And there's one over there. For absolutely sure. I've looked at them. Oh, yeah, and I forgot. There's one directly behind me that's very, very low. pretty close to the neighbor's house, but in front of it. Having said all of this, I really kind of wondered, have I lost it? So one of the things I did was I started to do some real research, because I found one footprint, and there were people in both sides of the field, in the back, on my mailbox, across the road. And I don't know how many people were in the back, but at least 3, because
Can I ask you a question? But is it possible that those flashlights were mounted on drones at some point?
I not at that time, no. The drones, when we rewatched everything the next day, keep in mind I stayed up till 7:30 in the morning watching this, and I watched something fly away, and I didn't know what it was, and I was like, what in the fuck is going on? Like, I was completely freaked out. But I'm not the kind of guy that's going to call the police, and I'm just going to deal with it myself. And I really did. I thought it was just kids. Kids, and I thought that was some kind of an anomaly. I don't really know. I don't know what I was thinking at that point. I'd been up all night chasing these around my yard. Couldn't get close to them. I'd hear corn hit my windows on my house and stuff. I'm outside, and right here it hit my truck, that's parked outside. I'd hear corn hit it, and I'd run over there, and then I'd hear like a rock hit the building on the other side. So they were obviously screwing with me, okay? And they were probably laughing their asses off in the corn because I couldn't pick them out. So the next day we go through the replay on the camera, and I said, okay, do you see that? And it's kind of iffy because it's shadowy, and infrared cameras do really strange things, especially when you zoom in, they pixelate, they do weird stuff. And so I had to learn what that was first. And then a few days later, I'm moving dirt, and that's when this guy tells her drones. And that's when I got kind of hip to the whole idea that, okay, wait a minute, this isn't just your normal operation. This is something where people are using this to break in and steal stuff. And by the way, I wrote Purdue, the head of the research program there, and he said, you need to report that to police, which I did. And in that time, by the 26th of October, we had caught them stealing from my father, who was also in the hemp program. We didn't grow any hemp there because of the rain. It got washed out. But he nonetheless had a camera there, and I was helping him set it back up because it went down for some weird reason that we couldn't figure out. And in so doing, we saw them stealing fuel out of his tanks. And it was very, very strange. And I'm not going to go into that real deeply right now, but what I can tell you is they put, this still sounds crazy to me, but if you look at it, you go, yeah, that's, I see it. It's there. They can, okay. So, you remember when the Pokemon video game, and I don't know anything about it. You remember Pokemon? And like people would walk around with their phones and go, oh, there's a Pokemon.
Yeah, they got run over and stuff like that. All on the network. Right? So
there was a thing there that you could see, but it wasn't really there. Well, when I'm looking through my camera or my dad's camera, which are on the same network, the same system, there's a guy standing there at 2:00 in the afternoon behind his fence in his pasture. And my friends go out there 2 different times, and there's nothing there. And they come back in and go, there's nothing there. And I rewind the tape, not the tape. I rewind the digital, the NVR is what it's called. And I play it back for them, and I show them standing in front of that person. And when they move aside to do something else, the person's there. When they come back, the person's not there if they're standing in front of it. And we were all just like, what the hell? So what this comes down to is it's either kids that have a lot of expendable capital, and there's a lot of those kids around this area, I don't think that's what it is. I think initially that's probably what it was. I think that we have Grissom Air Force Base, which is 55 miles east of me. And Grissom Air Force Base is a decommissioned Air Force base that used to house Air Force Two, which was the vice president's plane if the first plane didn't make it, or the president got on it if he didn't make it to Air Force One for some reason. And it's a refueling station and all of these things. So we lived through the 80s with the idea that if the bomb hits, we're all dead, because they're going to hit Peru, Indiana, Grissom Air Force Base. And it's going to wipe out 100 miles of everything in its path. So it might just very well be that this is nothing more. It's not an agricultural thing. It's not a survey thing. It's nothing like that, because there's no reason they would do that at night and take the expense.
And it's also not law enforcement.
Well, yeah, and it's not law enforcement because they've been in my driveway. I've reported to them over and over again, to the point where they were like, "You got one again?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "We'll be right out." And they fly out to try and see it because they want to see it. And the that I'll watch them on the camera, on my camera, I'll adjust it. I'll go out and adjust my camera so I can see the end of my road, more or less. I can see the lights, and okay, here comes the cop, and I'll see him drive on by, go down here, come back, and my other camera picks it up, come back, and he pulls in the driveway. There's nothing here, and I go, okay, well, what's this? So I'll turn this on. I'll turn my camera on. They'll go, what the hell? What the hell is that? And I'll go, that's two lights shining right there in the road, and they're perpendicular, or they're parallel. And I don't know what they are, but they're only 2 feet off the ground. So you tell me, because it's really foggy tonight. And the first time he came out, this officer happened to be the guy in my county, which I'm not going to mention, who ran the drones in this county. And he goes, "Man, we get 3 or 4 calls a night on the south of the county. I'm completely on the north side. I'm 3/4 of a mile from being in another county." And he said, "You're the first call we've gotten on the north side." He goes, "I really want to see these." And everybody kept saying, "I really want to see them. I want to see them." And I kept trying to put pictures up on Facebook, and people would make fun of me, and they would, "Oh, you're sober," and like they would make those kind of gestures. And then I would tell them, not only are they doing that, but they are also manipulating what's on my NVR records. So when we would go to playback, if you go immediately back, yeah, it's there. But I would save pictures. I'd do screenshots. I'd save stuff. I did all kinds of stuff trying to capture these images and these videos to show the police, right? And like to prove I'm not some maniac. This is happening. And no one believed me. No one. And I really started to feel like Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It was a very unpleasant feeling, to say the least. And then I used this and another camera and a game camera, and I caught them. And I have pictures of them now in the field where you can. It's hard to make out because the corn and the way they hide in it, and they're always back a few rows. But I'll go into that on another session because I know we're going long here. But here's the bottom line. These drones, if one's on that side of your house and one's on that side of your house, which obviously I'm surrounded by them right now, literally right now as we speak, they run on Wi-Fi. Okay, they no longer just run on batteries and a little, a radio wave. They run on Wi-Fi now. And what's Wi-Fi do? Everywhere you go, Wi-Fi looks for hotspots. Your phone is constantly looking for hotspots unless you take it off. I suggest you do, because that opens up a whole different mess of things for you. Take your computer and your phone off of hotspots. Just my advice to you. When they find, right when we started, I said, let me open the door and see if they're messing with my modems, right? Because I have 3 different modems here that I have to have because I'm on DSL, which is digital satellite feed, because we don't have a hardwired modem in here yet because we're in the middle of nowhere. We've changed my Wi-Fi setup 3 times now. The last time we did it, I had to go down to the phone company, and fortunately and unfortunately, where I live, I have one of the smallest phone companies left in the United States. And so the owner happens to be a friend of mine, and he sat right here in this very office and pulled up this computer and went, wait a minute, man, what the hell is that? And I said, what? Because I'm not a tech guy. I don't know that kind of stuff. And he goes, I set up everything on your Wi-Fi account, and I've never set that Wi-Fi account up on your computer, but it's there. Meaning there is an underlying Wi-Fi that takes over everything, which all of this is on there. There's no way to get it off other than, there's nothing you can do. They shut my phone down. They shut my computer down. They wiped my files out. So all of the files I had in the beginning that had them, this is going to sound really fucking crazy, but I assure you it's true. And I've had enough people out here looking at it that I can bring in 10 witnesses that are stone cold sober, upstanding citizens that will tell you, yeah, including my I can't say that. But people that didn't believe me at first and thought maybe I had fallen back into something, which I had not. They're able to manipulate your live feed if they're out there. So they can go into your Wi-Fi, and by looking for open Wi-Fi channels, just like you do on a hotspot, if they're on both sides of your modem, which they obviously are right now, even as we speak, they're getting every bit of this. They can go into your modem. They can find an open spot, which your modem has thousands and thousands of open Wi-Fi spots. I didn't know any of this. This is all research. I didn't know they ran on Wi-Fi. I didn't know any of that shit. Once they do that, they can get into your modem, and once they're there, they're there. They're like cockroaches. You can't get rid of them. And so all you can do is continually change your passwords. So you and I have gone through this over and over again, where I had to use different computers and go to friends' house and stuff and tell you this is the new password. You have to take this over now because I can't, because they're going to change it. For how many months did we go through where we just couldn't get a podcast done with this because my computer kept crashing and nothing worked right? And I spent 6.5 hours with my phone company to get that phone to work. They said we've never had to hard start a phone twice in our life. We've done yours 4 times, and we're going to do it a 5th. We don't know what is going on. So probably what we're dealing with out here where I'm at, this is probably military stuff. They're probably trying stuff out. I don't know. But the police have told me, if they get over your property, shoot them down and deal with the judge on it. No judge is going to, fault you for trying to protect your family. And oddly enough, when the corn came down, they all went away. But the day before the corn came down, I'd kind of, I'm not going to say I went nuts, but I'd sort of had enough, and I'd reached my limits. And so I was armed, and I had a spotlight and a UTV, and I drove around my property, around the cornfield, over and over again, and then down the road, and then back around all 3 sides of the cornfield, and screamed at them, I am threatened by you. I am legally obliged to terminate your lives if you step close to my property or threaten me in any way. And after that, everything went away. Everything. So all the guys I was seeing on my computer went away. And I know how crazy that sounds, but I've had 5 people sit right here at midnight and watch a guy out here on this side of my garage stand on the corner like this and then roll around like this, and then stand around like this and then roll around like this. He's got a hoodie on. He does this, drops down, drops up, looks around the corner, comes back. And right now everybody's going, this guy's a fucking idiot and a complete mental case. I have videos of people walking out there with flashlights, and I'm watching them because I know there's nothing there. There's no footprints. I put chicken eggs out there one time that they would have had to have stomped on. I poured a sandbox out there. They would have had to have left footprints, right? There's nothing. What it is it's called a repeater. And they're able to do, just like with the Pokemon thing, they're able to insert things into your video memory, but they can do it live through Wi-Fi, through interfering with your Wi-Fi signal. Now, when that happens, you're not going to watch anything on streaming. You're not going to do this, but the camera, because the NVR is separated and it's hardwired, would still pick it up. So it would be on my camera, but it wouldn't be there. I've stood right in front of them and they're there, but they're not there. I got in, I looked back, I looked at the video. How could they have run off that quickly? And they're still there. So I've had people come out and do it for me. I say, I'm going to watch, and you go out there, and they come back in and they look at the video and they're like, what the hell dude, that's weird, man. What the hell? And I've had so many tech people tell me, not only would it cost them, they would have to have some reason to do this, but it would cost them so much if it was even available that there's absolutely no way that can happen. Really high-tech people who are good friends of mine. I mean, very high-tech. I can't say what they did because of confidentiality, but one of them, and he told me, he said, okay, he said, do this. He said, go out and get a pair of these. And these are just, it's got like a laser. These are nighttime laser lights. And he said, and shine that laser at them. And he said, and they don't like that because it interferes with their operating system. So when we're done with this here in a few seconds, I'm going to go back out and I'm going to shine that at them again. And if they're close enough that it hits them and makes them move, I'm going to take this and I'm going to blast them out of the air. But by the time I get aimed, they can move 300 feet in 3 seconds. I've seen them. My neighbor called me one time that lives basically a mile to the diagonally north of me, diagonally northwest of me. He called me and he said, hey man, you're not crazy. And I said, well, I know that, but why do you say that? And he said, well, look out your north window, which is my deck. And I walked out my north window and I go, yeah, that's a drone. And he goes, that's what I thought. And he goes, wow, I'm looking at it with my binoculars and I've got $1,000 pair of binoculars. They're farmers, they make money. And he said, and I've never seen anything like this in my life. And that thing went at a right. It stopped and hovered for 3 or 4 minutes while we were on the phone. And then it just went and made a direct right angle to the east and then stopped, hovered, and then went straight north across the county line, stopped, hovered in the middle of the field, which I'm estimating based on tree lines. It's dark, and then shot straight up into the air at least 300 feet instantly. So for all those doubters out there, I got a call tonight from someone who I think was pretty worried about me, a family member that was, I think she was very, very worried about maybe like something going on with Chad, like what's going on here? And she called my wife tonight and said, do drones have green lights on them by any chance? And my wife said, yeah, we've got red and blue, red and white, and red and green out here. And she goes, I'm looking at one, and she lives in town. Mm-hmm. And she said, I'm looking at one off my front porch right now and through binoculars. And she said, I knew something was weird because that light's never been there. It's very low. It's very bright. And it started at sunset. So if you're looking for a drone, here's how you do it. At sunset, look for the first star that lights up in the sky on the horizon line, not in the sky, on the horizon line. And it will be the brightest star you've ever seen. And you'll go, wow, that's a really bright star. And you won't think anything of it. Or you'll go, oh, it's a plane. Or you'll say, oh, it's a planet. All of the things you should say that I said over and over again. Like it's got to be, it's not a drone. Don't be ridiculous. And then get a pair of binoculars. You don't have to have fancy ones. These aren't. These are $30. But get something that'll show you 1,000, 1,500 feet. And then zoom it in. And it will look kind of like a puffball until you get it zoomed right in until it's a clear light. Hold it there. And as you hold it, it will start to move around because they don't like to be looked at, which means that they have a camera on them that is looking at you if they see you looking at them, right? And most of them have like a 360 camera that's kind of spinning around looking for something to look for. And it's on kind of what would, I guess, the belly of it. So it's like one of those half sphere Walmart cameras, that's looks like sunglasses. You can't see the camera, but there's a camera that spins around in there 360, and it's motion activated. And so something will activate it, it'll click, and it'll tune into that exactly. And that's how they catch thieves in Walmart or whatever. Well, they've got that sophisticated enough to put on drones now. Now, what we're experiencing here is much different than probably what most people are experiencing, because I believe we're probably experiencing the military. The police have said, it is not us. Shoot them down. We don't know what else to tell you. And when the police tell you that on record over and over again, you can kind of take that one to the bank, right? So there you go, Miguel. There's part one of drones. And I mean, I could go on about this for hours and hours because I've had to live with it for so long. So sorry, I didn't mean to go on too long. I'm sorry. Sorry.
No, but it sets up the final little segment I had, which, is the kind of thing that I think is worrisome because here you are, and, as you say, this is all very real. This is all happening right now. So now I start to think to myself, how far off are we from somebody mounting a gun at home on a drone?
Right now? Right now?
If the military can do it. So how far are we from that actually being put into use?
It is. It's already in use now, right now.
No, but I mean, somebody killing, like, for example, a kid going home.
No, I'm telling you that hunters use them right now to kill deer out here.
Oh,
right now.
Wow.
How scary is that?
Yeah, because, a kid could fly, could shoot a teacher from a drone,
And you wouldn't know.
And here's the other thing, I'm a worst case scenario type of person. Obviously, you start thinking with the worst, and it gets really bad because, to me, the pedophile lists and all that exists out there because the person's been caught once. But there are a lot of people that have not been caught, and this really makes it, dehumanizes the way to get the what they're looking for, because you can fly this over here in Costa Rica, for example. I know because the buildings are built like the old time houses, like in the farmhouses, and I'm no expert, but many of them had the kitchen outside, right?
Yes.
A lot of the stuff. And this is an open building that they have out there. Like the bathroom, the sink is outside in the bathroom,
Yeah.
and the bathroom is a high wall, obviously, but there's a space, no windows, where air can come in and stuff.
Yep.
You can, and it's a little bit high up, so you can't just look at. But if you had a drone hovering over there, you could easily look into either bathroom in a girls' school, a boys' school. Take your pick, and that stuff's frightening. They people,
Miguel, I've had lights flashing through the window, this window right here. I've had lights flash through that while I was sitting here and hit me right in the face.
Yep.
And the same light go back 100 feet and hit the bedroom window where my wife and my son were sleeping. I opened fire because I was like, I don't give a fuck what that is. Something's going to die. That is so real and so scary. I'm sorry, I cut you off. Sorry.
No, it's all good. I mean, the bottom line is where I was heading with is the only way in the States, like, some legislation of some type, and then it's going to get hairy and weird because of rights and things like that. But it's already snaked out of control. It's already, too far gone. Like, for example, Like I said, could they be used with these hyper cameras? Could you put one outside of school and send your friend's test results to your phone?
Yes, you can do more than that, Miguel.
No, I know. It just, but I'm thinking about just, because kids, it's like, it's not outside the realm of possibility that kids nowadays might have, some of them may have $1,000 they can spend on this stuff, and stuff. So
it all runs on your phone. It all runs on a smartphone now.
And where I was getting at is there have been tests in China and Dubai, at least that's two places, where they're actually using drones as driverless taxis.
Yep.
So now this is a drone. I remember the headlines of one of the CNN pieces. Those drones as big as cars. Yep. Well, these drones are as big as cars. You know what I mean? And people
the big drones are what's called tethering, and those are what they do is they can pick. They are their own Wi-Fi station, and so they tether to the other drones that are smaller. And you'll see them. I've seen two of them tonight fly by here. And they look like planes, except the plane has to fly a minimum of 2,000 feet at night, at any time, actually, other than when they're crop dusting. And they can only crop dust in the daytime around here. So they're flying at night. They're smaller than a plane. They're about the size of a car. And the lights flash very vastly differently and much faster. And they'll fly in a circle. And when they turn, they don't turn like a plane would, where you can't see the lights when they turn away from you on the wings. They turn like this. So you never stop seeing the lights. And that's because they're communicating with the drones they fly by. That's called tethering. So, everything I'm saying, you can look up for yourself and you can see. What you can't see is what we don't know yet. And we're getting ready to find out. For example, I'm almost positive, and this is speculation and conjecture. I understand that, and there are going to be people who say I'm crazy for this, but there have been times when I have had blinding lights on outside where they absolutely just could not see me because of the blinding lights, right? And I sat in a room in my house that's tiled, and just no way they would know I was in there. There's no way. And I belly crawled out my door and got out to a place where I thought there was going to be somebody standing there, and there was nobody there. Not only that, which I know that makes me sound completely insane, but not only that, but there was a drone above me that shot a light down on me as soon as I walked out the door. The moment I walked out, it wasn't more than 20 feet above me. Bang, it shot a light down on me. In my fucking house, man. Walking out of my house. Now, what that tells me is they're somehow able to see through curtains and stuff like that, which can only mean really kind of one thing, which is thermo cameras.
Yeah, infrared, right?
It's I mean, it's got to be thermal, right? So if they can see thermal, are they watching that my wife and my kid are asleep? Because for a while, they didn't. When Andy thought I was kind of crazy and thought, look, your dad's sick. You've been in a wreck. You get all this stress going on. She sent me down to talk to me about it. And I said, I'm not crazy. I'm seeing this, and I'm going to wake you up tonight, and you're going to fucking see this and eat these words, because that is insulting. Looking back on it, she loves me, and she was trying to, protect me, and what a dick I am. But I woke her up, at 3 a.m. and said, and she's like, what? And I was like, come out here right now. And I gave her a pair of binoculars. And I said, look at that right there. Look at it. And she looked at it and she was like, what is that? And I go, that's a fucking drone. That's what I've been telling you for 2 weeks. They're everywhere. And she starts looking around. I'm pointing them out to her. And after that, like, there's not been any question about it. It's just, once she'll come home and she'll go, hey, did you see that one? I saw that one turn on when I was at your dad's doing his bandages on his neck. That's 7 miles from here.
Yeah.
And it'll be over my barn by the time she gets here. As in, they're following us from there to here. That's weird, man.
Yeah.
That's scary. It's very frightening. And the most frightening thing about all of it is the penetration of this system so that they can put stuff on my camera that isn't there live as I'm watching it. And I've had many, many, many people, stone cold sober, accredited people, look at it and go, what the hell is that? And I go, you go out there and you take this flashlight. Here's a gun. No, I don't want the gun. Okay, the flashlight. Sneak around there as sneaky as you can be, and you shine the light on that. And they go out there and they shine the light, and then when they walk away because there's nothing there, they come back in and they're like, there's nothing there. How can that be? They ran off. How could they run off that quickly? They had to have jumped over the fence, and they had to run through the field. They had to do there's got to be footprints or something, and there's nothing. And I said, and I rewound it and I played it back for them, and they watched themselves walking up to a guy who's not there. And that's where people who keep the tech guys are like, well, that doesn't even exist. There's no technology that could even do that. And I'm like, none? And they're like, well, I mean, what would be the motive? And I go, what if there is no motive? What if the motive is not there? What if it's just they're testing it? And
right.
This is an area that's barren. There's nobody out here. There's no lights. We don't have lights blazing into the sky. We didn't. We do now. What if that's the case? What if they're listening to us right now? And they're like, dude, you're totally paranoid. And I said, am I paranoid or am I afraid? I see a therapist for whatever that's worth because I got in a car wreck and have a head injury. Okay. I'm not ashamed of that. Mental health is mental health, but we don't have mental health in Indiana, by the way. It's the great exodus of Indiana mental health, they call it, because Indiana doesn't believe in education or health care. They believe in having surpluses of money that doesn't do anything. It's fucking nuts. My therapist actually said to me, you're not paranoid, you're afraid. There's an enormous difference. If you were paranoid, your stories wouldn't match up each week when I see you. And I couldn't look at the videos and the pictures that I've saved on this on a file that's on a separate key, that's on a separate card I have to put in and then pull out so it doesn't get erased. And in so doing, show him that, and then he's like, yeah, there's somebody in the field right there. That's a face. That's somebody standing there, and that guy's got some kind of a weird thing in his hands in the cornfield. And I'm like, yeah, that's 75 feet from my deck. And he's like, wow. And now, and then all of a sudden, you know, I'm talking about this with him for weeks, and I'm talking on it. And the only reason I put it online and talked about it on Facebook and things was because I thought, you know what? If I die or disappear or get arrested, I should probably have some kind of something to show all of this, because I can't maintain the files because they keep erasing them, or they pixelate everything out of it. They'll put a fog around it. I know how crazy that sounds, but I've got those files because I put them on a thumb drive before they could take them off. I have pictures on my game cameras that show them moving through the field in black suits with just this part cut out of a face mask, a black face mask. I mean, you're talking about full military-like operations. And Miguel, they don't leave a footprint. I found 3 footprints in this entirety. Part of the time, it was raining so hard, there's no way there couldn't have been a footprint. There's no way. So how do they do it? And the truth is that it's on my camera, but it's not out there. Why? I don't know. Military exercises, I don't know.
Well, I hope everybody enjoyed our. I hope everybody enjoyed our little debut podcast here. The future was yesterday, because this drone thing is way further advanced than we both thought at the very beginning. And we wanted to share our little frustrations and what we found out, and some of the personal experience Chad's been through, because it is pretty crazy. And we're probably heading into an area where maybe in a short period of time we will see in the news, some acts, that really bring drones, into the forefront of conversation for how dangerous it could be as well. Because
they already are.
Yeah, it's out of control. It's just completely out of control. So I'm Miguel Durante. That's Chad. Any final words?
Yeah, I just want to say real quickly, anybody who doubts any of this or who questions any of this, first of all, go online and do your research. You can find all this stuff in 15 minutes about, how a drone can infiltrate your Wi-Fi and things like that. But second of all, I want you to look up drones in the news, and you will see that in Colorado, Arizona, Montana, Nebraska, these wide open spaces. Indiana hasn't made the news yet, but we're clearly the victims of it as well. I have people contact me weekly now about this and say, hey, have you ever had a drone follow your car? Because, I'm not taking drugs. I'm not anything like that. And I'm beginning to wonder if I'm losing my mind. And somebody tagged me in one of, a tag of a tag of a tag of a tag. And so I've kind of become this weird antenna for drone people who are under the influence of being attacked by drones. And they have pictures where in Colorado, a big drone, like one of the military green plane drones, crashed, and it's got a big line down the side of it. And there's no identity to it. None. No one claimed it. There's no identity. There's no way to trace it. That's scary, man. So what I would recommend is this. Know the laws about drones. If they're not over your property and they're less than 200 feet above your property, if they're over your property and less than 200 feet above your property, that's your property. Shoot them. If they're above that 200-foot mark, which how do you tell? You can't shoot them legally. You will get arrested because it's private property. But one woman contacted me and said that she had tweens, which I didn't even know that term. I guess that means they're between they're not quite 13. So they're 11, 12, almost 13 kind of thing. And a drone kept coming to their house, looking in their bedroom windows, in the girls' bedroom windows upstairs. And the girls kept saying there's flashlights in our window. And the parents were like, oh, stop it. It's something. And then the mother was outside, and the girls were playing in the sprinkler. So this is in Colorado this summer, and they're playing in the sprinkler in their bathing suits. And the mother sees this drone floating above them, watching them. And so they got in their car and they followed the drone home, and it was a neighbor's drone. So it was a cheap one, it stayed up in the air probably an hour or less. And the guy wouldn't answer the door, and they wound up using a hose. They were spraying their roses and stuff. And she had a super high powered hose, and she saw it above and went, psh, and the drone shorted out, and they went out and they found it out in the grass a little ways. They're very, very hard to find when you drop them. Be aware. Be aware all the time now, because we're under a new type of surveillance, and I don't know if it's military or police, or if it's an agency, or if it's part of the Edward Snowden thing. I don't know. I don't know if it's NSA. I have no idea. Or if it's just nosy neighbors that are weirdos, or if it's perverts. But be very, very aware of it. It's very true. It's all real. And I assure you, you're going to start seeing it very soon, because it's spreading out as we go. And I can walk into a gas station now, and because I know how to pick them out so easily, I can take my binoculars and I can say, you want to see a drone? And the attendant's always like, yeah, step out real quick. And I'll zoom it in. Watch this. There's that light helps a lot because it really bothers them. Zoom it in and you look, and bam, there's a drone. And then I give it to them and they look at it. And when the drone starts moving around, they're like, what the hell is that? And they don't like the laser light. So they start moving around trying to get away from it, because it screws with their, a friend of mine told me that it screws with their, I don't know, their Wi-Fi or something that the laser light does. It screws with their system. So there you go.
Well, that's a whole bunch. We'll probably do another one on drones further down the line. We've got a whole bunch of other subjects that, global warming, AI, electric cars, et cetera, et cetera. So we got a billion things to talk about here on the Future with Yesterday podcast. This is our first edition on drones. I'm Miguel, and that is Chadillac.
Thanks, Miguel.